You hear us okay, Darren?
I can hear you, thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear us, Jess, as well?
Hi, how are you? I'm here.
Hi, Jess. Just confirming that you can hear us all okay, and Councillor Cameron as well. Great.
Yeah, thank you.
We're just a few minutes away from the public forum. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public forum being held in the council chambers for this Monday, the 11th of December. A reminder that this public forum is being audio recorded for administrative purposes. By speaking at the public forum, you agree to being recorded. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this public forum, that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. Albury City accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this public forum. Item 2, conflict of interest declarations received. Mr. CEO.
None received for the forum making.
Thank you. We'll pass over to our speakers. Our first speaker tonight is Therese Lum. It is in relation to item 13.3, DA 10.2023.40424.1, childcare centre signage, car parking and ancillary structures, 785 Mate Street, North Albury, speaking against council's recommendation. Apologies. Is it Therese or Teresa?
Therese.
Therese,
you.
sorry.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
Thanks, Carmen.
Feel free to go ahead. at your
Okay,
leisure.
thank you. Yes, I'm here on behalf of the Smith Street area in North Albury and surrounding residents. We've developed a little bit of a group together, and we were putting in a request to defer the decision regarding the approval of the childcare centre at Mate Street. We do principally support the childcare. However, we are concerned that there was inadequate community consultation affecting the surrounding households. I have a petition with over 60 signatures to support what I'm saying tonight. We're mainly concerned about safety and traffic, the limited parking and the landscaping. We'd like it noted, we just feel like it was, we feel like the traffic study probably wasn't a true reflection on the impact of over 400 cars that are now going to be at an intersection per day. Most of them are either in the PM or at the AM because drop-off and pick-up times are fairly consistent. We feel it's an intersection with no lights, no crossings. We're very concerned. And our other concern was that it was missed in the traffic report that that section of the road where the entrance to the facility will be is actually a gazetted brake testing centre road for the automotive centre. So you've got plenty of cars coming, you've got brake testing. There's no footpaths on continuing along Smith Street. There is a provision for a small footpath. Our other major concern was the car parking, which is under the requirement. And it has been compared, 3 spots under the requirement. It's been compared to other childcare centres, but we feel it's not comparable because the other childcare centre it was compared to was not on a busy road. Like Mate Street is an extremely busy road. We've got a couple of new businesses there. We've got a childcare centre across the road. We've got O Health Gym. We've got a laundromat. We've got a mechanic that has to back cars out right at that driveway entrance and exit. Our other major concern was the landscaping. It's actually, the landscaping requirements is below the required amount that required for a childcare centre. So that is a concern in the noise barriers. There was a suggestion that, maybe to free up some car parks, people could catch a bus, or there is no footpath to the bus stop. You can't actually cross Mate Street on your bike if you want to get to the trail. There's a 1.7 kilometre stretch of road that has no lights to cross. I try to cross this road every day with 3 children. And in my opposition to this, I was told, will you cross at the refuge island? There is actually no refuge island there. So I would have to get in my car to drive across a road to get my kids off a bus or go to pick them up from school. We can't cross the road to get to the skate park unless we go the 1.7 kilometre extra. Friends on the other side can't walk over to soccer. We've got a whole new amazing sporting facility being put in and there's no crossing. We just feel like the traffic there is going to be, it's already a huge issue, and we just feel like it's going to get a lot worse. So just in the last week, I've door knocked, we've got 60 people. We had 20 people over on the weekend just having a bit of a chat. As I said, we are for this facility. Childcare is really important. I know as a mother how important it is. We just feel like there's possibly not, we want a bit more input. We feel like the cars are going to cut down Smith Street, cut down Muntz Lane. It is it's a shared zone. There's kids playing there all the time. My kids are riding the scooters. We just would like a pause if we could, and maybe have a little bit more of a look into the decision before it's all approved and it's ticked off. I think the safety issue is such a major thing. There's so many kids. That's what we would just really like. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Therese. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Bowen.
Hi, thanks, Therese, for your presentation. Just wanted to check, so just so I understand
Yeah.
where you are on Smith Street.
I'm on the caravan park end,
Oh,
so on the
okay,
other
so
side. So
right,
to cross
okay.
over there,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where we can't cross.
Because
And
you
yeah,
can't, can you drive across?
you can drive
can
across.
drive
Yes.
across, yeah.
Again, we don't. I turn left already. I go
just-
down and I turn around, and there's no pedestrian at the lights down there. There's no pedestrian crossing.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that. That
No
makes
worries.
sense. Right.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Just to note that we actually have received the petition that
Okay,
you've put
thanks.
together. It's been tabled and also circulated to all
Thank you.
councillors prior to the meeting. So just wanted to note that. So
Thank you,
thank you
Violet.
very much. Thank you for your
Perfect.
presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Our next guest speaker is Mrs Hamilton in relation to 9.1 Notice of Motion Australia Day 2024. Mrs Hamilton will be speaking against Council's recommendation.
Thank you very
Hello.
much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Well, I'll start off by saying, how did we get to today and the reasons I feel we need to maintain the status quo? Bear with me. 1818, Governor Macquarie acknowledged 26th of January officially as a public holiday. 1920, Nationality Act. All Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders born after January 1, 1921 gained the status of British subjects. In 1949, therefore, they automatically became Australian citizens under the Nationality and Citizenship Act 1948. 1931, Victoria adopted Australia Day 26th of January. By 1935, all states followed Victoria. Nationality and Citizenship Act 1948, and this is really important. It came into effect on the 26th of January 1949, which is now Australia Day. The main provision of the Act were that all Australian-born and other British subjects resident in Australia for the 5 years prior to the 26th of January 1949 were automatically Australian citizens. Anyone born in Australia on or after that date was automatically an Australian citizen. Comment from Jacinta Price. Supports keeping 26th of January as Australia Day, observes that 26th of January 1949 marked the beginning of Nationality and Citizenship Act 1948. Which created an Australian citizenship and the conditions by which it could be acquired. And Indigenous people were implicitly included in the Act in the category of natural-born Australians. Minister for Immigration Arthur Corwell described the intended effect of the above Act. It will symbolise not only our own pride in Australia, but also our willingness to offer a share in our future to the new Australians we are seeking in such vast numbers. My aim and that of the government is to make the word Australian mean all that it truly stands for to every member of our community, and how fortunate to be Australian. In 1988, at 26th of January became a national public, well, I'm not too sure, you Google that. 1994 agreement was reached that the holiday be observed on the actual date. 2017 to 2022, a number of Victorian councils started to stop recognising Australia Day on the 26th. 2019, Morrison government bill stripped rights from councils to hold citizenship ceremonies if they do not carry them out on the 26th of January. 2022 Albanese government altered to 3 days before or 3 days after the 26th of January can hold citizenship ceremonies. Current 2024s, which I think is quite divisive for us, proposal by Albury Council, 26th of January is just up to the community to do what they want with no, I can't see any celebrations. 19th of January are the awards and 29th of January, the citizenship ceremonies, which I was pleased to see didgeridoos, musicians and everything. My question is, where is the pride, the patriotism in being an Australian with this separation of events? Where's the joy? Indigenous War Service, this is really important. A record of Indigenous service dates back to the start of the Commonwealth of Australia, 1st of January 1901, and even a small number in the Colonial Defence Forces before that, and have served in all conflicts in which Australia has participated. We all come together in war and blend our cultural diversity and take up arms, and now we all have to mourn 1788 and be divided as a community and nation instead of mourning all the fallen, all the cultural diversity fallen. It is loyalty and patriotism that encouraged our culturally diverse Australian citizens to join together to fight for our freedoms we still have today, just. I guess we have to wait till another war comes our way for us all to come together again as a nation. Very sad how fractured we are. So, what alternative dates? 1st of January, clearly Federation 1901. Oh no, it must be the 9th of May when it all actually came through. May? How could we throw a shrimp on the barbie in winter? The aim is to delete its existence altogether. Recently, this can be seen in South Australia under the Holiday Act. No reference to the 25th of December, no reference to Good Friday. Anzac Day, no reference, but that has now been rectified as Anzac Day on the 25th of April after a big backlash. Today, Stephen Smith, High Commissioner UK, cancelled Australia Day Gala. There is a definite theme to cancel all we hold dear as a nation to be celebrated all together. Last year, Wesfarmers stopped flags and Australia Day items being stocked. Thank God for the treasure hunter. My huge concern is that I did not vote for this council to alter our National Days events on the 26th of January without a democratic, properly conducted vote by the community. To end, last night on NITV, with Ernie Dingo, an Aboriginal man, stated, "The past is the past. We must be in the present to go forward into the future." Well said, I said. You need an events coordinator to party up Australia, get some joy into it with the cultural activities, didgeridoos, flags, and Australia Day dress-up apparel. Last year, uninspiring. I was so uninspired. I was the only one dressed up. Get the new citizens onto it. They'll have cultural events, all sorts of things. That's what I have to say. Get us together and not divide us.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you. Thank you for
Hamilton.
having me.
Councillors, thank you. Any questions, councillors? Thank you very much for your presentation. Also noting at this time, we've also received the petition from the member for Farrer. It's been received and is tabled in the chamber as well. So I just want to acknowledge that. Our next guest speaker is Jennifer Huber in relation to the Notice of Motion Australia Day 2024, speaking for Council's recommendation. So at your leisure, feel free to start. Thank you, Jennifer.
Good evening and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Jen Huber and I'm a member of the local Knitting Nanas. Each week we sit and we chat to a wide range of people and listen to those people that we meet then and also through our networks. I'd like today to reassure the Council that there is strong community support for changes as suggested by the Albury Council to the Australia Day programs. The Family Day at Noriel Park is a delightful way to use the public holiday. It provides the flexibility that young families and multi-generational families so often need. You can come when you like, you can stay for a short or a long time, you can do the morning tea, the picnic, the swim in the afternoon, whatever suits you. So we really think that that's such a collaborative and inclusive idea. I believe the enhanced format for the Albury Awards will increase participation and the expanded program will enable the community to celebrate those who give so much to Albury. Lastly, my husband migrated to Australia to work as an engineer at Uncle Toby's many years ago. He was delighted to take up citizenship with its rights and responsibilities. He was not concerned which day the ceremony was held on. But in fact, now he looks back on it, he's rather quite pleased that it wasn't held on a day with a complex history. I think sometimes we forget that many people from overseas really view our history through a colonial perspective, and that can be not an easy thing to take. I would like to encourage and congratulate the Council on their willingness to look at the options and alternatives. I believe that this is good management. Thank you also for helping the community to move forward through our Reconciliation Action Plan. People looked for and adapt to change. It's a human strength, and change is not something that we need to be afraid of. So thank you, Albury Council, for giving us the opportunity to look at options and to be inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Councillors, any comments or questions? We'll move to our next guest speaker, Janet Osborne, in relation to Notice of Motion Australia Day 2024, speaking for Council's recommendation. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Mayor King, and thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak about this motion tonight. I must say I was very encouraged when I heard and read that Albury City had decided to make some changes around how the 26th of January would be observed in 2024, and I'm speaking in support of that move. I believe that Albury City has made these changes in line with their Reconciliation Action Plan of 2022. I thought about doing a legal recap around the Constitution, but I don't think anybody needs that in the spirit that these changes are intended. I think that the changes are proposed in light of the fact that many people don't have positive feelings around the 26th of January. So I feel that to celebrate significant civic and belonging events on this day is problematic. The events celebrating community leadership and citizenship are being accommodated during that week. And so I think Albury City has struck an excellent balance for the observations to take place during that week. Extracting citizenship events from the 26th of January honours the fact that joining the Australian polity and belonging to the citizenry should not occur on such a deeply contested date. Without wanting to go into the contest of what Australia Day means for First Peoples, I think it's important to recognise that it is a contested day. For some people, it is a day to coalesce around belonging, but for many people, it signifies solemnity, loss, and dispossession. Moving citizenship ceremonies and awards from the 26th of January simply recognises that this is a day for people to choose their own way to observe that day. Belonging ceremonies can happen on other days and in other ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Any questions from the councillors? Thank you. Our next guest speaker is Kate Melville, also speaking in relation to the Notice of Motion Australia Day 2024, speaking for Council's recommendation. Good evening, Kate.
Thank you, Mayor King. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Apologies for the get up. I've been at work. I'm also speaking in support of the council's decision. I think it's a fabulous one. I think it shows what there were things flicking up on here before. One of them was working together. One of them was courage and compassion. The other one was integrity. I think that when we welcome new people to Australia, often they've come from areas of trauma, war, they're refugees. They're trying to come to a better place. Why we would want to welcome them on a day that is fraught with trauma and anxiety and sadness for so many in our community, or not so many, but a lot of people within our community, is beyond me. So moving it slightly, fantastic, great idea. Thank you. I'm keeping things short and sweet because I bang on too much a lot of the time, but I think it's great.
Thank you, Kate. And our next guest speaker is Ruth Davies in relation to the Notice of Motion Australia Day 2024, and Ruth will be speaking for Council's recommendation. Thank you, Ruth.
Can't read anything without glasses these days. Nadu Yinjamali Balga Balga Bangnulbu, Balambam Balbu, Balgir Bangbu. UND Ruth Davies, Baladu, Jiramalinya, Wiradjuriyina. My name is Ruth Davies, very proud Wiradjuri woman. This is Wiradjuri land, the land of my ancestors, my ancient ones. My spiritual ancestors created this land, these people, animals and waterways. Tonight we talk about changes to the Australia Day format. Tonight I'm here on behalf of members of my Aboriginal community. And you've heard not every Aboriginal person feels this way, but these that I speak to and represent tonight feel this, that citizenship to Australia is a very special thing to have. Now we've been told that there'll be 3 separate events over the week rather than one on Australia Day. One is the Friday, 19th of January. We will celebrate our local heroes who volunteer and go above and beyond for our community. They're called the Albury Awards. And if you haven't already nominated someone, I'm pretty sure you've still got time to do so. Number two, Australia Day, 26th of January, is not going to be a day where we create citizenships, but it will be a family-friendly activities at Nouriel Foreshore. It still says a national public holiday, but Albury City are talking about a decision to make it more inclusive on the day and not about Australia Day itself, or what we in the Aboriginal community call Survival Day or Invasion Day. I am an Australian Wiradjuri Aboriginal person. My dad has a convict history. I'm just as proud of that as I am of my own Wiradjuri mother. What I don't want to do is celebrate the atrocities, the massacres that happened to half of my ancestors. January 26 is a day of sadness and trauma for many within the First Nations community. This land, Australia, has been founded on mistruths. Terra nullius, a land belonging to no one, that is not true and has been proved under Mabo. We celebrate that every year in June. We need to remember that. People were here before Europeans arrived and this country was stolen. Monday, the 29th of January, is where we are talking about welcoming new citizens. But did you know there are 4 other Australian citizen ceremonies throughout the year? Australia Day has only been marked an official public holiday since 1994, less than 30 years. Some Australians have traditionally enjoyed a day off, with some choosing to host barbecues or to enjoy the summer weather. But for many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, an increasing number of non-Indigenous people who stand in support of us, 26th of January is a day of mourning and is referred to as Invasion Day or Survival Day. We need to look at these things. Our rules change over time. Time tells us that we need to relook at things, review them. Are they still appropriate for the time? In 2023, Aboriginal people not being included in the Constitution, 2023, and we still celebrate the fact that Australia was invaded. Like I said, there are 4 other citizenship ceremonies throughout the year. I only attended one and gave a welcome to country only last month. We will continue to welcome people to our country and our city, but not on a day that is associated with trauma and sadness for our community. This, I believe, is a step forward towards being stronger and better together. We have over 600 new citizens just this year. Not all of them got their citizenship on the 26th of January. So what I say is that what we should be doing is celebrating the day how you as an individual feel fit. But I also say reflect on why you're doing that, because that's what we'll do. We, the Aboriginal community, don't celebrate it. We reflect and we are ready to talk. We will be present at Nouriel on the 26th of January to offer our hearts and our minds. We'll make a yarning circle and reflect on our lives, our history and our shared past. We'll also yarn together about what the future will look like for us, because the referendum was just the start. It's time for truth-telling, for acceptance, for tolerance of difference and mutual respect for all. You can't erase our history. We must remember it and we must learn from it, and we do things appropriate for our time. The aim, I believe, is to provide this opportunity for all people in our community to feel safe, respected and welcome. And Albury City Council, as an organisational matter, I think you're following the rules and these changes are appropriate. We, as the Aboriginal community, applaud and thank you. Mandungu.
Thank you, Ruth. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King, and thank you, Ruth, for that wonderful speech. I'd firstly like to point out I really appreciated seeing you there at the citizenship ceremony, the last one we held, and you made such an impact for those new citizens. My question to you this evening is, would you be willing to be part of the conversations moving forward in 2024 around how we can continue to improve our practices around Australia Day? Thank you.
I personally would love to be a part of that conversation, but remembering we've also now just got the Aboriginal Advisory Committee, which I'm hoping would come to that for discussion as well.
Absolutely will. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you, Ruth, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the council meeting being held in the council chambers for this, the 11th of December 2023. We'll start with the opening affirmation and acknowledgement of country. We gather to represent the people of Albury who have entrusted us with this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, wisdom and common sense. May our personal values give us honesty and courage to serve our community effectively and with respect for all. We would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today and pay our respects to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, culture, tradition and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that contribute to our community. A reminder that this council meeting is being webcast and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being recorded and webcast. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this council meeting that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. Albury City accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. An audio recording will be made for administrative purposes. Item 3 on the agenda, conflict of interest declarations received and disclosure of political donations. Mr. Zachnich.
Thank you, Mayor King. 4 conflict of interest declarations this evening, one from Councillor Thurley. The conflict of interest is non-pecuniary, significant. Councillor Thurley is a member of the Southern Joint Regional Planning Panel. It relates to items 13.4 and 13.5 of the council agenda, both to do with joint regional planning matters, and Councillor Thurley will leave the chamber when those matters are discussed. Likewise, from Councillor Alice Glacken, a non-pecuniary significant interest. Councillor Glacken is a panel member of the Southern Joint Regional Planning Panel, and in relation to CM 13.4 and 13.5 on the council agenda to do with the planning panel recommendations, will also leave the chamber and not participate in the discussion. And then from Mr. Brad Ferris, one of our deputy CEOs, it's a pecuniary interest as a senior staff member in relation to CM 17.2, senior staff contractual matters. Mr. Ferris will leave the chamber during that discussion. And from Ms. Tracy Squire, a pecuniary interest, again as a senior staff member, CM 17.2 is the item, and Ms. Squire will leave the chamber when that matter is discussed. That's it for conflict of interest declarations, Mayor King. In relation to political donations and the requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, we do have a number of development applications for consideration this evening. The Environmental Planning and Assessment Act under section 10.4 requires a person submitting a planning application or a submission regarding a planning application to disclose any reportable political donation and or gifts to any local councillor or employee of the council. Reportable political donations include those of or above $1,000. The disclosure statement forms are available on Council's website or from the Customer Service Centre. In dealing with development applications, councillors need to take into account specific planning matters contained in the Act. Accordingly, the provisions of 4.151 of that Act are set out in the Council Officer's report, detailing planning issues to be considered. The Local Government Act 1993, Section 375A requires that a division be called whenever a motion for a planning decision is put at a meeting of the council. Planning decision means a decision made in the exercise of the function of council under the Act, including a decision relating to a development application, an environmental planning instrument, a development control plan or a development contribution plan under that Act, but not including the making of an order under Division 9.3 of Part 9 of that Act. Thank you, Mayor King.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Item CM4, apologies, CM 4.1. There are no apologies for the meeting. CM 4.2, attendance by councillors at the meeting by audio visual link. Councillor Bettridge.
you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that council receive, note and accept the attendance of Councillor Cameron and Councillor Callaghan via audio-visual link for the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mayor King.
Thank you. Councillors, happy to put the motion? Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. CM5 mayoral minute. There is no mayoral minute. CM6 action plans. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that the following action plans be received and noted. Actions complete for noting only. 2 actions awaiting response from external parties. 3 actions in progress and 4 long-term issues more than 3 months.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. Happy to second that motion.
Thank you. Councillors, did you wish to speak? Any councillors wish to speak to this? In that case, we'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM7, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. CM 7.1, minutes of the council meeting held on 27th of November 2023 at 6:54 p.m. Councillor Bettridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that the minutes of the council meeting held on Monday, the 27th of November 2023 at 6:54 p.m. be confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Happy to second that through you.
Thank you. Any comments or observations or any speakers for or against? In that case, we'll put that motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. CM8, reports from community forums. There are none. Notices of motion, notices of rescission. CM 9.1, notice of motion, Australia Day 2024. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'll just need to get the text. I'm sorry, I'm having some communication problems. That Council 1 reaffirms the position of not holding citizenship ceremonies. I'm sorry, could I ask through you, Mayor King, could someone read it for me? I'm finding it impossible to read the text.
Happy to do that on your behalf, Councillor Cameron. 1, reaffirms its position to not hold citizenship ceremonies or the Albury Awards on Australia Day 2024. 2, reaffirms it will carry out extensive consultation throughout 2024 on the preferred format for Australia Day 2025. 3, notes that policy matters such as this are made by Council. 4, reaffirms that decisions on any matter are not made in briefing sessions. We have a councillor to second that. Councillor Bettridge.
Thank you. Through Mayor King, happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bettridge. Councillor Cameron, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor King. I'll reserve my reply and speak at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers? Councillor Glacken speaking against the motion.
To speak against the motion, but also to put forward an amendment to the motion, if I may.
Yeah, it's a...
And if we can find those words and
we'll
then
just
for a
look at
seconder.
that and then look for a seconder. One moment.
Yep. Thank you. So my amendment would be that council reaffirms its position to hold the Albury Awards on an awards-specific event on 19 January 2024. 2, holds a citizenship ceremony on 26 January 2024. 3, reaffirms the family-friendly activities to be held at Noriel Park on the 26th of January 2024. And 4, reaffirms community consultation with participants at the 3 events above, as well as with non-participants post the events in 2024.
Thank you.
If I can find a second.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Anyone? Councillor Bowen.
I'll second that motion to bring that to the front.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you. And thank you for seconding that, Councillor Bowen. I would really like to thank everyone for coming today, well, for the speakers coming today and presenting to us as a council. It's really good to hear people's views. Diverse as they are, it's good to hear those views, including on another matter that we will be looking at later in tonight. And I've heard from various quarters, and some people I've heard say that council is not cancelling Australia Day. No, that's correct, because council cannot cancel Australia Day. However, I can understand confusion, because at the moment and I've got it in my amended motion because that's what it's being referred to at the moment, we're having a family-friendly activities day, and it just happens to be held on the 26th of January. So we're not having Australia Day celebrations in any shape or form on Australia Day. We're having a family-friendly activities day on Australia Day. And that's what it's being referred to as. And so I can understand people being confused as to and why they might think that we're cancelling Australia Day. At our last council meeting a couple of weeks ago, councillors raised concerns or comments about a couple of motions that were before council about community consultation. And while I acknowledge that these changes are really operational changes, because we're still having those events, we're just moving them around, I do believe that we should change some things, but not everything. I think it's too difficult to change too many things and then expect the community to make comment on it. So I would like our councillors to support that we do change things up and try and reinvigorate the Albury Awards, because that's a significant part of celebrating us as a community. And then still hold the citizenship ceremony on the 26th of January and have our family-friendly activities day on that day as well. And I do believe it's very important to note in the motion that we will consult with people who are participants in each of those three events. They are three events, and speakers have raised that tonight. They are three events, but we should talk to everyone who participates in those events, but also people who do not for whatever reason. Citizenship is very important. It was raised tonight by one of the speakers. It is a very important aspect about being an Australian and being part of the country in which we live. And I'm aware that whilst it may not be significant for everybody, there are many people who do believe it's significant to be confirmed as an Australian citizen on the 26th of January. And there are people who have in the past chosen to do so on that day. There are many people who have tried so very, very hard to be able to come to Australia. And there are many who dream of coming to Australia. And there are, of course, those who have died trying. There are many people who come to Australia and then fight very hard, work very hard to become Australian citizens, and are so excited on the day that they are confirmed as an Australian citizen. We have had, and again, speakers have referred to this earlier this evening, we have had thousands of people die defending Australia and our democracy and our community, and for all of those wonderful things that we call ourselves Australia for. So I believe that we should still maintain some events on Australia Day, and not just a family-friendly activities day on Australia Day for this year. And then with the appropriate consultation, and I do not believe that we've yet had appropriate consultation. There are many people who have talked about it, many letters to the editor or numerous letters to the editor. There's been phone calls, text messages, some quite abusive. There have been messages of support So I believe we should embrace those communications we've had already, but also enhance the opportunity for many more people to have their say on what they believe we should be having as our community event to celebrate those 3 items that are listed up there now. So it's the awards ceremony, the citizenship ceremony, and an event to do as people want on that actual national day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Speaker against, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor King. I won't speak very long about this, just that I oppose this amendment. You could get me on 1 and 3 at a pinch, but on balance, I believe the first motion moved by Councillor Cameron was the most appropriate one, even though I have got an issue with one of those points, and I'll discuss that later when this amendment, I think, gets knocked down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Speaker against, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor King. I speak against this amendment. However, I'll be supporting the original motion. As we've heard, January 26th is a problematic day in Australian history. For many, it's a day of mourning and reflection. It marks the beginning of the British colonial invasion, resulting in war, dispossession and genocide against First Nations peoples and the systemic racism and intergenerational trauma that endures today. As Auntie Ruth told us earlier, Australia Day, the national holiday as we know it today, has only been celebrated on January 26th since 1994, but it has been a problematic day since 1788. Millennials make up our biggest demographic in Albury, as detailed in the Economic Indicators report, also on tonight's agenda. According to a 2022 survey, the majority of our biggest demographic think that we should not celebrate Australia Day on January 26th. I agree and think that it is only a matter of time before this change comes. Regardless, this is a matter for the federal government. Contrary to some disappointing local media that could only be described as fear-mongering, Council is not changing the date, and it's not even in our power to do so, as highlighted by Councillor Glacken. People are free to celebrate January 26th as they see fit. However, it is no longer a federal government requirement for councils to hold citizenship ceremonies on this day, and as discussed, we hold citizenship ceremonies on other days throughout the year. Councils that have already made this change include Maribyrnong, Melbourne City, Mirrabbeck, Darebin, Yarra City, and more recently, the regional Shepparton Council in Victoria, Fremantle in Western Australia, Launceston and Flinders Island in Tasmania, and Inner West and Byron Shire in New South Wales. Shifting formal citizenship ceremonies and the Albury Awards away from this day allows those events to be properly and proudly celebrated. This makes space for January 26 to be marked in a way that is led by our Aboriginal Advisory Committee and our Aboriginal community in a way that pays respect to our shared past. And I look forward to Council consulting with them and our wider community about what that should look like. The majority of feedback that I've received about these changes has been really positive. This is not radical, it's not a Greens agenda, but an issue that cuts across politics. This is a matter for local government, a matter for this council, elected by the people of our city to represent everyone in our community and to make decisions with insight and respect. So I don't support this amendment, which isn't in the spirit of the original motion or our Reconciliation Action Plan and is a step backwards when we as a progressive council need to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I actually speak in support of the amended motion. Councillors, from the feedback I've received, it is clear that we've not performed to our community's expectations in terms of consultation and communication on this issue. And while there was clear intent to trial a change and then seek feedback, what I've heard is our community wants to be brought into the conversation ahead of change. For some, deferring the citizenship ceremony has been described to me as stirring a sense of a loss of tradition. Even some who are supportive of the change, but not of the process, are reflecting on whether we should have fully consulted before, not after. And unfortunately, as has been mentioned by Councillor Glacken, there is confusion and concern in the community about what had been planned for Australia Day 2024. Given the community concern and acknowledging there are members of our community that have a connection to official events being held on that day, I support reinstating the citizenship ceremony as suggested, then ensure consultation on any new approach that reflects our community's expectations occurs ahead of 2025. I ask councillors to consider whether that is a reasonable approach. Councillor Bowen speaking for.
Thank you, Mayor King. Today's debate, the amendment really isn't whether we hold official ceremonies or just that on Australia Day or spread them over a few days. Either way is fine, in my opinion. It's about bringing the whole community along and consulting and engaging them prior to any significant changes being made. And I think on this occasion, we probably could have done a little bit better from a consultation point of view. Understandably, though, this is a very complex issue and there is not one decision that will be an answer for everybody. It's still important, though, to remember those who have suffered along the journey and learn from our past while continuing to value everyone with respect and dignity. As a council, we don't have all the answers, and that's why council needs to maybe continue to consult with the broader community a little bit more before we make informed decisions. Although after hearing our speakers tonight, I feel that it's a very worth change to have a look at going forward, though. There's no doubt about that. So it is a tough decision, and this has been a very difficult thing for me to consider, and I'm still, in a sense, considering it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Glacken, did you wish to close?
One of our speakers made reference, and thank you for the opportunity to close on this amendment. One of our speakers tonight talked about not being able to erase history, and I agree entirely. You cannot erase history. The history is there. We can't undo that. You cannot unring that bell. That's our reality in our past. We are living in the present and we are working towards the future. Because if it were not so, then, and apparently I have Scottish, Irish and Jewish ancestry that I'm aware of. And if we had to live and dwell in the past, then I don't think the Scots would ever have forgiven the Vikings for having gone over. And then we've got to remember the Romans as well. So whilst I acknowledge that there are many things in our pasts and in much closer past than the Vikings or the Romans, we do need to work as a community and work in the now for our future. I actually had wanted to move the Albury Awards or request that we retain the Albury Awards on the day, or at least the announcement of the Albury Awards. But that would be too difficult to achieve at this stage because it would disrupt programs already set in place. And I think celebrating nominees for the Albury Awards over a week's period before an announcement would also be absolutely fabulous, because we would then as a community have a whole week to consider all of those wonderful people who are nominated before the actual recipient is announced. I again thank the speakers for joining us tonight. It is not easy to come to a council meeting and put forward a case that is not necessarily something that is palatable by everyone. And as a councillor, I know that it's difficult to please some of the people all of the time. And it's very difficult to please all of the people any of the time. Thank you very much, councillors. And I really understand the concerns raised by people, but ask councillors, could we make some changes this year, but support this amendment as it is, because that allows us to make some changes, keep some continuity, and then consult with the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Clacken. We'll put the amended motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is lost. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to speak to your motion now or still hold your right of reply?
I'd like to wrap up, Mayor King, if there are no other speakers.
I do have a couple of speakers for. Are you happy for me to?
There are other speakers, please indulge.
We do have a speaker for. You just broke up there, councillor Cameron. So if you're happy for me to proceed, I do have councillor Edwards first off.
Just quickly, Mayor King, you spoke about a concern for tradition. I wonder how First Nations people feel about 70,000 years of their traditions being impacted from January 26, 1788. I just wanted to touch on the fact that these changes are in the spirit of our reconciliation action plan and truth-telling about our shared history. What is right isn't always easy, but I'm very proud for Albury City to join the other councils that I've mentioned who have made these changes out of respect for their Aboriginal communities. One of the key themes of Albury 2050 is a leading community. It's time to walk the talk and be a leader in this space. And I encourage councillors to support this motion that once again, our council can demonstrate leadership and courage. Thanks.
Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'll be speaking for, if you can just bear with me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm speaking for the motion that is currently up, the original motion. As stated before, Australia Day is not cancelled. It's still very much a national public holiday, and Albury City Council does not have the power to change this. We do have the ability, however, to change how we behave on this day. Albury City Council has received a petition seeking to revert back to the old ways of doing things. Federal legislation changed for many good reasons, and perhaps the petition was better served to the Honourable Andrea Giles, MP for Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Multicultural Affairs, who announced these changes in December 22. I will not entertain the 376 people that signed outside of the LGA. And where were the other 1,866 people from the postcode of 2640 and 2641 who signed this petition last Australia Day? They were not at Noriel Park, and they certainly haven't been at the other citizenship ceremonies we run throughout the year either. The attendance at the Australia Day events have dramatically been declining. Rather than host one event, Albury City Council will host 3 events to rightly celebrate the Albury Award recipients and the nominees who contribute tirelessly to the betterment of our community. A citizenship ceremony will align with the same day, time and venue as the other 4 services that happen throughout the year, and a passive family-friendly day at Noriel Foreshore. These are positive steps forward that will make the week inclusive for all people. The new format is an opportunity to be considerate of First Nations people, to remember our history as a nation, both good and the bad, and realise that for many in our community, the 26th of January is not a day of celebration. It represents a day in which Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were displaced from their people and their culture. Australia Day is not cancelled like some would like you to think. These are not radical changes. These are considered, they are inclusive of all people, and they are optimistic in seeking reconciliation as we move forward. I would like to invite all people to attend the citizenship ceremonies, the Albury Awards, and to visit our many significant natural and cultural heritage sites throughout the week, such as the Noriel Foreshore, Wonga Wetlands, the Indamara Sculptural Walk, and Mungab Arena, a declared Aboriginal place to reflect, to pay respect, and to reevaluate what we want our national day to represent. How is it possible to create a better country, one that is inclusive of all people and celebrates the rich history of our First Nations people when respect is at the core of what we do? And I would like to thank Councillor Cameron for moving this motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, Speaker 4.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'll go step by step through the motion. Actually, I'll start at number 4, that council reaffirms that decisions on any matter are not made in briefing sessions. That is true for the 8 councillors that are at nearly every briefing session. It's patently obvious that there are no decisions made at briefing sessions. On to the Australia Day matters. I go a fair way back in Albury, and I can remember the trade fair, the floral festival, and all sorts of other events that have come and gone. And to my mind, Australia Day and the way we've been celebrating it has lost what it might have had 15, 20 years ago. It's starting to wane. The Triple J's Hottest 100 used to be celebrated. The countdown was on Australia Day. It's quite a few years since that was done, and now that's been moved, as far as I know, to New Year's Eve. So things have changed, and I think it's really important that this Progressive Council adopts to those changes. I'd also like to point out that myself and a lot of other people do not appreciate getting unsolicited emails about how they should vote on the recent referendum or about Australia Day. I think the community can make up their own mind, and you know, a lot of us are not part of any political party. So I know a lot of people that have been into the office, Susan Lee's office, to say, please don't send me any more of this stuff. And it's pretty hard to get off the mailing list once you're on it. So you really have to walk into the office. So I appreciate a lot of people are upset by this, but I think it's also a political act. And I think we need to think long and clear about what we do next year, get involved in some better consultation, because I really don't think we've handled it well. But the intent in my book is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to? Councillor Bowen, speaking for.
Thank you, Mayor King. And as has been previously done, I'm not opposed to these changes in any way, shape or form. And as Councillor Baker did say, it was around the consultation more so for me, just to make sure that everyone was on board, and I felt that it could have been put forward in a better light. So in that respect, by no means am I opposed to these changes going forward. I just wanted to make sure that the majority of our community was on board with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Is there a question, Councillor Callaghan, or is that up from earlier?
Yes, Mayor King, there is a question. Am my mic's on? Yep. Through you, Mayor King, to the most relevant staff member. To my knowledge, there was many opportunities for consultation throughout the course of the year. Is that correct?
Mr. CEO?
Sorry, through you, Mayor King, consultation on changes to Australia Day?
Yes, there was many opportunities to have consultation around Australia Day, but as a group and as the council, this is the step that we've taken to move forward. So I've definitely put up on many occasions opportunity to consult our community, and we've all been part of that conversation about where we've reached today. And I find it a bit rich that now some people are saying we should have had more consultation when we've all been part of those conversations. So was there opportunities for consultation earlier throughout the year?
Thanks for the question, through you, Mayor King. There's always opportunities for consultation. The way forward when this was announced by the CEO, by myself, was after consultation with the councillor group. I take this matter very seriously. I don't go out on my own and make statements that have not had a conversation with the councillor group.
Thank you, Mr. Zachnich. I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to close debate?
Thank you, Mayor King. I found it necessary to move this notice of motion because, notwithstanding what some councillors have said tonight, there was a discussion around this matter in a briefing session, and following that, a change was made. Now, you can attempt to portray that as an operational matter that the CEO should have had the carriage of, but I think it's a bit thin myself. Councillors who know me and people who have known me in the past will know that I'm very rigorous on not making decisions in briefing sessions. It is prohibited by our code of practice, and I hope that this series of events will graphically show councillors why the best place and the rightful place to make policy changes is in the chamber tonight, in front of the people and in the open. Enough said on that subject, in my view. What is Australia Day? Australia Day is a commemoration of the day that the First Fleet arrived in Sydney Cove and hoisted the Union Jack. It is always going to be an Anglo-centric day of remembrance. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be an Australia Day. What I am saying is that Australia Day is not a sacred day in the way that Anzac Day is. Anzac Day is probably, or in my opinion, is the most important day that we celebrate and commemorate in Australia, apart possibly from Christmas and Easter. Why is that fact important? As has been mentioned by many speakers tonight, we're not contemplating interfering with Australia Day, and even if we had that power, which we don't, I doubt that we would. I certainly wouldn't. What we are saying is that our citizenship ceremonies, which are held throughout the year on other days, not just held on Australia Day, obviously, it's not appropriate to have them any longer now that we're permitted to change, because it is a celebration of an Anglo-centric, an English-centric, a British-centric event in our history. Now, if you're a person who's being naturalised or given your citizenship and you're from British stock, you may not be confronted by that and you might think that it's fine. If you're Irish, I dare say most Irish people would find it more confronting, as many friends of mine have found it. But if you're Lebanese or Vietnamese, an Arab person, a person from Africa, a person from other European countries, then it should be readily apparent that forcing people to take their citizenship ceremony on the day that commemorates British and English settlement of this country is a little bit off centre, I would suggest, to put it politely. And let's not even consider those, or let's consider those things, but then stop and think. This country wasn't empty when people got here, despite the false doctrine of terra nullius. There were people here for an extremely long period of history who lived here and prospered here. And they were here, and their survivors are still here. So having a citizenship ceremony on the condition that it's held on the day of commemoration of British settlement of Australia is problematic, because what you're saying in a default way is that the dominant culture in Australia is one of Englishness, that the Union Jack, which still exists on part of our modern flag, is really still the flag, and that if you want to live here, you have to conform. You have to become Anglo-centric. Well, I reject that, and I think most Australians reject that. I can't let this opportunity go without mentioning the petition. The petition, I think, garnered around 2,000 signatures, and that's including the ones from far away. The population of Albury is 56,666. Over 90% of people in Albury did not sign that petition. And that was with the local federal member and her staffer, Steve Block, and all the other assets of her office being used to promote it. I think that if I was Susan Lee and Steve Block, I'd give the game away. That is a pathetic and ridiculous outcome. Finally, there's been some mentions tonight by the Speaker and by Councillor Glacken of people who have suffered and died defending this country. I've got to say I'm very uncomfortable with those statements. We have Anzac Day to rightfully commemorate our war dead and those who have suffered in wars. To try and elevate Australia Day, which wasn't even a national holiday until 1996, to try and elevate Australia Day and put it on par in terms of solemnity and sacredness to Anzac Day is offensive to me, really offensive. Samuel Johnson said, "Patriotism is the last resort of the scoundrel." And by God, we've got a few scoundrels in Albury. That's become apparent.
Councillor Cameron, we're just cutting out. We just missed the last seconds.
I thank councillors. I commend the motion to them, and let's do this the right way. Thank you.
you, councillor Cameron. We'll put the motion.
Cool, I'm happy to do it again.
Those for?
English political theorist.
Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM10, presentations and deputations. There are none. CM11, reports on minutes of committees and working parties. CM11.1, minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee held on Wednesday, the 15th of November, 2023. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council receives notes and accepts the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on Wednesday, 15th November 2023 be confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Gluckin.
I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to it at all?
Just to briefly note that at that meeting, we reappointed Stephen Coates as the chair of the committee until 2027. So that will ensure great continuity in what has been a well-functioning committee of council.
Thank you. No other speakers for or against? Then we'll put that motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. And just to note that Councillor Cameron has now left the meeting. CM 11.2, minutes of the Local Traffic Committee meeting held on Thursday, the 16th of November, 2023. Councillor Gluckin.
Thank you. To move the recommendation as a motion and then ask for clarification on one item with the staff, please. That council receives notes and accepts the minutes of the Local Traffic Committee meeting held on Thursday, 16 November 2023.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thurley.
Happy to second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gluckin.
Yes, if I may, through you to the most relevant member of staff, with reference to matters without notice 2, raised by Albury Police. It was with reference to stop line that had faded, or my memory is that it was stop line that had faded and the stop sign was a way off to the left. The minutes read as the line is faded and off to the left.
Mr.
That's the way I
Farrow.
read them.
Mr. Lawson, is it? Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Gluckin, through you, Mayor King. Yes, that would seem correct, that it was the lines were faded and the sign was to be relocated to be more visible.
Thank you very much. Noting that, very happy to move the minutes otherwise. Yeah.
Thank you. In that way, if there's no other comments, we'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. CM 11.3, minutes of Albury Airport Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 22nd of November, 2023. Councillor Gluckin.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as a motion that council receives notes and accepts the minutes of the Albury Airport Advisory Committee meeting held Wednesday, 22 November 23.
Thank you. Councillor Bettridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'll be very happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Gluckin, did you wish to speak to the motion? No other speakers for or against? In that case, we'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. CM 12, documents for sealing. There are none. CM 13, officers' reports for consideration. CM 13.1, development application 10.2023.40277.1, 2-lot Torrens title subdivision 1074 Tabletop Road, Tabletop. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that Council A receives the contents of this report and B, grants consent to development application 10.2023.40277.1 for a 2-lot Torrens title subdivision of land situated at 1074 Tabletop Road, Tabletop, described as Lot 1 DP 12888422, subject to the conditions contained in the draft determination included at attachment 5 to this report.
Thank you. Councillor Gluckin.
Happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to it at all?
Very briefly, I mean, given the number of development applications we've had for very large subdivisions in that general area, this to me is quite a routine and ordinary matter, and simply makes good use of a piece of land.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, in that case, we'll put the motion in division. Those for. Councillors Callaghan, Thurley, Edwards, Bowen, King, Betteridge, Glacken and Baker, and none against. That motion is carried. Thank you. CM 13.2 Development Application 10.2023.4024 Retail Premises, Supermarket and 3 Specialty Shops, Signage, Car Park and Retaining Wall, Coles Supermarket 30 Diamond Drive, Thurgoona. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move this recommendation as the motion from the report that Council A receives the contents of the report and B grants consent to development application 10.2023.4024.8.1 for retail premises, supermarket and 3 specialty shops, signage, car parking and retaining wall at 30 Diamond Drive, Thurgoona, subject to the conditions contained in the draft determination included at attachment 5 to this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley. Sorry, had you turned off then. Councillor Glacken, did you wish to speak to the motion, noting there is also a question?
Happy to take the question, but I would like to speak to it.
Oh, I'll take the question first. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor King and Councillor Glacken. Acknowledging, or through you to the relevant member of staff, acknowledging that the Albury bus network is the remit of the state government, what capacity does council have to advocate for an additional stop near the Diamond Drive Tabletop Road intersection to coincide with the completion of the development?
Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, thank you for the question through you, Mayor King. Yeah, we're happy to work with Transport for New South Wales to look at the possibility of a bus stop in that location. Would also require the consultation with the service provider as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Glacken, did you wish to open debate?
Yes, thank you. Many people in the Thurgoona area will be very pleased to have an alternative provider by way of a different supermarket. Clearly, neither of them will meet everyone's needs, but it is an opportunity to have another provider there. I noted in the attachments one letter raised concerns with reference to this particular lot had previously been earmarked for something else, noted it was commercial. However, the reality is this development really is what this land was most recently zoned for. So it is appropriate. Questions have been raised and throughout the process of consultation by the developer with staff, including, I have no doubt, pre-lodgement and subsequent to lodgement before the application came to us as councillors, there has been discussion clearly because it is articulated in the report around the hours of operation, illumination, all sorts of aspects with reference to the actual design and ultimate build of this facility. And many of those comments or areas of concern raised by people with reference to this development have been taken into consideration, including the fact that it was originally requested or the application was originally wanting this development to be open 24 hours a day. It is not. It is significantly less than 24 hours a day. The height of the signs has been taken into consideration because of the fauna in that area and the relationship with lighting and the animals living in that area. So I think it's a good outcome. It's appropriate for where it's designed, or it's designed for the appropriate location. It was meant to be commercial. We've had the suggestion or the request about incorporating another form of transport into that precinct. So I think it's a good outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Any other speakers for or against? In that case, I'll put the motion in division. Those for? Councillors Callaghan, Thurley, Edwards, Bowen, King, Betteridge, Glacken and Baker. There are none against. That motion is carried. Thank you. CM 13.3 Development Application 10.2023.40424.1 Childcare Centre Signage, Car Parking and Ancillary Structures 785 Mate Street, North Albury. Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that Council A receives the contents of this report and B grants consent to development application 10.2023.40424.1 for a childcare centre, car parking, signage, storage shed, shade structures and boundary fencing, subject to the conditions contained in the draft determination included at attachment 5 to this report.
Thank you, Councillor Betteridge. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mayor King.
Thank you. Did you wish to speak to the motion? There are a couple of questions. Take the questions. First off, Councillor Thurley, I think you had your hand
Thank you, Mayor
there.
King. My question is to the most relevant staff member. We heard tonight a request that this matter be delayed. Are there planning implications related to that? I guess I'm talking about the developer and his program and so on.
Mr. Christie?
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor King, the main, I guess, implication for council would be in under New South Wales legislation, there's a period of time where council can make a decision. If that period of time elapses, which is normally 42 days after lodgement, then it does open an appeal right to what's called deemed refusal. So they cannot wait for council's decision, decide to take the matter to Land Environment Court. In regards to, I guess, implications for the provision of the development, there's a number of conditions should council approve that require some matters to be dealt with before construction could occur on site, and that would still need to be dealt with.
So follow up, if I may, I believe you said that the period of time was 42 days. And if we don't have another council meeting until February 2024, we will exceed that time limit?
And thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor King, without knowing the precise limit off the top of my head, and it does exclude any time where council's asked for information, is waiting for the information to return. With consideration that the next council meeting is scheduled for, I believe, Monday, the 12th of February. Could be a couple of days either side for the calendar. Yes, that would exceed that 42 days.
Okay.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King, and to the most relevant staff member. There was lots of feedback in regards to state safe pedestrian access. Could council consider putting a pedestrian footpath on Smith Street and that be allocated in our 2024-25 budget? Thank you.
Mr. Lawson. Mr. Miller.
Thank you for the question and through you, Mayor King. I'd just like to confirm that Smith Street is actually already scheduled within the 24-25 budget. This is part of a broader review of the footpath network in that area. So it would include paths along Smith Street from Park Avenue to Mate Street, and also paths in Park Avenue itself and Bellevue Street from David to Mate Street.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Glacken.
Yes, I have a few, if I may. The first is to the most relevant member of staff. The driveway, I've heard concerns raised about the driveway lining up with another driveway. Is that the automotive or the laundry driveway? And can you explain how that would be dealt with? Is that an issue, the whole conflict potential?
Thank you. Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor King. So the application has been considered by internal council staff, including our traffic and transport team, who haven't raised substantial concerns in regards to location of the driveway relative to other. It is proposed to be a one-way system, so I'll only be entering into the site from Smith Street. as opposed to most normal driveways, which obviously operate on a two-way system. That one-way system would mean that the conflict wouldn't be from vehicles reversing out from this site. It would only be if there was a conflict at a point in time. It would be within the street network, not from reversing out from this site.
Okay, thank you very much. So that removes that one part of the conflict. Thank you. And my other questions relate to the 7 departures listed, and I'm happy to ask them all at the same time. Through you to the most relevant member of staff. The departures, my understanding is 3 of those departures are the boundaries, and that 3 of the boundaries don't meet the requirements. Landscaping, instead of, and I've moved to a different page there, instead of, I think it's 30%, it's down to something like 28%, but part of that is concreting. Is concreting actually considered as landscaping? And then we move on to the car parking and bike spaces. There's 23 car parking spaces allowed. There should be 26. My understanding, and there'll be 16 members of staff. Will there be 16 members of staff there every day, all day? Is that what is anticipated, or will be over the week a total of 16? I'm assuming that the children don't drive themselves, and so they won't need a car parking space during the day. They'll be dropped off. The parents won't stay there either. They'll go away. And so that's why it's acceptable to have the 23 spaces. But if you could clarify that. And then the bike spaces, there's a number of bike spaces provided to encourage people to ride, which is great, except how do we deal with people who don't necessarily live within a bike riding distance and or on very wet days? You can't rely on bike riders to ride, even the best of hardened bike riders to ride. So boundaries, landscaping, including concrete, parking spaces and the bike spaces. Thank you.
Mr. Christie?
And there's a lot, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor King. Yes, a few of the setbacks relate to the boundary setbacks for the buildings, which again are outlined in the report. Because of the fact they do take into account the adjoining and the average of adjoining buildings, then they do come up, again, as with averages, they come up with some scenarios that don't always necessarily apply with correct outcomes or with good urban design outcomes, where you still will want some of the buildings to be closer to the street and to address some components of the street. In regards to the landscaping component, just looking through the plan, from ours, it does comply with the state government's requirements for landscaping, but our DCP is over the top and above those requirements. And so from our report, it's 23.66% of the site meets our definition of landscaping under the development control plan. So a little bit short, obviously, of that general requirements of 30%. Again, there's rationale within the report as to why council staff have considered that suitable for support in this instance and in this case.
And concrete with that? Sorry to interrupt.
Concrete is not counted in our definition of landscaping.
Okay, thank
I
you.
would count within non-built upon area, but not landscaped area.
Yeah, thank you.
In regards to the car parking, yes, there's a demand for 25.2 spaces under our development control plan, which does equate to 26 because you do round up the 0.2 of a space. It does comply with the state government's requirements under childcare parking guidelines, but that also does defer to council's development control plan, where council's development control plan provides an alternate figure, whether that is higher and or lower. In this case, yes, it is 3 paces short. I've said that has been considered acceptable for considering through from an assessment by council staff for a variety of reasons. One of them does include the car park, include the provision of bike spaces, which aren't required normally at this size of car park level, to encourage the use of alternative transport, linkage opportunities, considering it is still reasonably central within the Albury LGA. Yes, it doesn't guarantee that they'll be utilised at all times. Same as if a centre is not fully utilised, it won't require all those 23 spaces or 26 spaces if it has numbers less than its maximum. So it may not have the maximum numbers on site at any one particular time. In some ways, the staffing ratios are a little bit dependent upon the children's numbers. So it's 1 per 4, 1 per 8, and 1 per 10 children, depending upon the ages of the children. And it will rely a little bit along those and how they decide to do their shift changes and the like. But that's where the averages for our DCP start to try to look at creating a bit of a level scenario rather than individualise it too much, because that can obviously change between operators of a facility at this particular stage. But yes, it is acknowledged that it was 3 car spaces short. In that respect, as I said, it did comply with the state government requirements, not just council's development control plan. There was consideration also from staff as to how childcare centres do operate. They're not operating as a school. They do have staggered drop and finish times. While we haven't done one around Albury, there was a study done by predecessor to Transport New South Wales in 2015. I'm going to guess it was the RTA, but it may have been another name. I compared a number of childcare centres in both regional and metropolitan areas in size from around 10 to 120 odd children, and considered that that morning peak was generally between 7:30 and 9 a.m. And then the afternoon peak, which generally afternoon drop-offs, pickups, sorry, were generally from around 3:15 till most of the centres closing at around 6. So it wasn't a case of all the spaces being used within a 10 or 15-minute window, as you normally would find in a school environment where they all let out at the one point in time. That all went into staff's consideration as to whether it provides support or not for the requested shortfall of car parking.
Okay. And can I ask one more question, please? It was raised by one of our presenters today. We had one presenter about this. And it was with reference to the refuge and being able to cross. And I'm sure I read in the reports last night that there is a refuge. So where is that refuge, or can the most relevant member of staff through you confirm what they are referring to?
Mr. Christie?
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor King, I'll answer it in context of the development application. So it's not anticipated that someone would park on the opposite side of Main Street and walk their children across to access the childcare centre site. Obviously, as has been raised, crossing from Main Street across Main Street may be problematic, but that may continue to be problematic regardless of the outcome of this childcare centre application, and with consideration to the numbers and the vehicular movements overall is not going to be significantly exacerbated by this childcare centre application. So if that is something that would be considered, be more appropriate considered in context the overall movement across Main Street, regardless of the childcare centre application.
Thank you. Clarifying question. The speaker tonight made reference to having been referred to a refuge, a pedestrian refuge. And my memory is I have read that in the documentation that I too have read. But I'm not sure where it is.
Yes, through you, Mayor King. It's unrelated to the development. I think it's the point that Mr. Christie's making, but we're certainly happy to follow up the request or the identification of potential refuge in Main Street, as I understand it.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor King. I will still ask it, even though Mr. Zachnich half covered it off. But given there's general support from the community around there for the childcare centre, and the traffic seems to be the issue, wouldn't it be wise if people could pull up on the eastern side of Mate Street and walk across at a suitable crossing place? If there's nothing further down at North Street and there's nothing until up at the school. I know it's not a planning matter, but it's something that ought to be looked at.
Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, thank you for the question through you, Mayor King. It's certainly something that we could monitor post if this report got up. Something we could monitor post implementation of the facility and monitor the usage or pedestrian activity across that street area. But there is no refuge within close proximity of the facility at this point. But certainly something we could monitor post the childcare centre up and running.
Thank you. A question, councillor Callaghan.
Sorry, Mayor King, I'll be speaking for the motion, is what I'm holding up, sorry.
Yep, that's fine. Speaking for?
Thank you. Yes, I'll be supporting the Mate Street DA. This development meets the needs of our growing community, and some wait lists for childcare are up to 1 year at this point. We need more daycares to support parents to return to work as they wish. Early childhood education gives children the best start to life, providing the opportunity to develop friendships, develop new social, emotional and community skills. It also supports transition into school. This location is co-located to primary schools and high schools. We have Xavier, St Anne's, James Fallon, North Albury Public School and another daycare across the way, providing convenience for families when navigating school pickup and drop-offs. And convenience to many is key. With the welcome addition of the footpaths in the 2024-25 budget, people can also safely walk to and from the centre and surrounding schools with the addition of these. So I'll be supporting the development application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor King. I actually have an amendment if the mover and seconder would agree. And I've just sent that through, an updated version to reflect some of the discussions we've just been having.
Yeah, we'll just wait to get that up.
So it's to add point C to the original. Which would be that council also requests that council staff monitor vehicle behaviour in Monts Lane, Smith Street and pedestrian behaviour on Mate Street post commencement of operation of the facility to determine if local area traffic management facilities are required.
Thank you, councillor Edwards. Mover and seconder happy with that? Comfortable? Councillor Bettridge is happy. Who was the seconder? Councillor Thurley. Question, councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Clarifying question with reference to the addition of C. For what duration? Because it may not work very well for the first month, then may work really well, or it may be the reverse. Might it be 6 months after opening or 12 months after opening to get a real view?
Mr. Lawson.
Traffic expert.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor King. It is something that we could monitor immediately after the operation commences. However, should traffic facilities at that point not be warranted, it doesn't preclude them being considered at a later date should the need arise. And those type of areas are something that we can consider to monitor. And also customer requests can dictate where works may be required with those changes being taken through local traffic committee for implementation where necessary. But we can look at a 6 month, 3 month, 6 month period if that pleases council.
Thank you, councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King, and through you just to the relevant member of staff again. Just wondering, would it be at all plausible to start that monitoring even prior to the commencement of the childcare centre opening, so you could actually have a point of difference of actually how much it's increased as well?
Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, thank you for the question again through you, Mayor King. Yes, that is something that we would do prior to the commencement of operations. We do have some pretty good data around traffic movements in that location already, but we can reconfirm that prior to commencement of the childcare facilities.
Just following that up, that's noting that it was deemed problematic prior to this DA going forward. So I would think that would be a worthy consideration. So thank you. That's great.
Thank you. Councillor Bettridge, did you wish to sum up debate? Thank you.
Thank you, through Mayor King. I actually didn't open debate, but that's fine. I'm quite comfortable to close. No, that's all right. That's fine. We all got caught up in the debate. That's fine. I speak in favour of the motion. I initially had reservations as to the appropriateness of this application for planning consent on a couple of points. The Albury Development Control Plan 2010 stipulates that 30% of the proposed development should be landscaped. This proposal attains 23.66%, which is a significant shortfall. Then why am I supporting this motion? Upon further reading, the childcare planning guidelines is a policy document that does take precedence over the Albury Development Control Plan. Page 11 of the Development Application Assessment Report deals with this, and I agree with the assessment that the landscaping is satisfactory overall. Noting that a detailed landscape plan identifying species of trees and shrubbery will need to be provided at construction certificate stage, and that a condition will be imposed on consent to ensure landscaped areas are maintained in good health in perpetuity. This gives me confidence that this development will fulfil the requirements under Principle 5, brackets landscape in the Childcare Planning Guideline 2021. The provision of 23 on-site car parks is not compliant with the requirements of the Albury DCP, with the provision of bicycle racks and the acknowledgement that lined marked on-street parking is available on Mate Street and is expected to be used. The short time frame of use during pick-up and drop-off times, I feel that the provision of 23 on-site car parks is adequate. The decisions that we as councillors are asked to make in regards to development applications are most difficult and onerous for me. I'm not professionally trained in this area, and at times I'm overwhelmed with the responsibility. I take guidance from the professional staff at Albury City, read the concerns of people who are involved in the process. While understanding the complex nature of the planning framework, I have an inquisitive nature and genuinely care about my community and the legacy I leave behind. I have considered all of the above and they've guided my decision to support the motion before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betteridge. Happy to put the motion in division, councillors. Those for, Councillors Callaghan, Thurley, Edwards, Bowen, King, Betteridge, Glacken and Baker. That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item CM 13.4, Development Application 10.2023.40336.1, 481 to 487 Swift Street, Albury, 7-storey mixed-use building, consideration of submission to Southern Regional Planning Panel. Just noting that councillors Thurley and Glacken are leaving the chamber while this is considered. Thank you. Do we have a councillor willing to move the motion? Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Do we have a pre-prepared option to support? I can make it up. Add the words as you go. I move that Council A receives the contents of this report and B determines to make a separate submission in support Oh, here we go. Okay. I was
Oh,
looking
thank you
for
for
it.
clarification. Me too.
Determines to make a separate
Thank you.
submission to the Southern Regional Planning Panel in relation to development application 10.2023.40347.1 for a 7-story mixed-use shop housing development comprising of 32 residents, 2 commercial tenancies, swimming pool, car park, demolition of 3 residents, including heritage items 164 and 166, and 34 lot strata title subdivision and consolidation of existing titles at 481 Swift Street, lot PT 20, DP 780123, 485 Swift Street, lot PT 20, section 24, DP 780123, and 487 Swift Street, lot 1, DP 91211, Albury. The submission is to support the application.
Thank you, councillor Edwards. Councillor Baker.
We do second, Mayor King.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, did you wish to speak to it at all?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any councillors? Councillor Baker.
Yeah, I'd like to speak for it and think it's a really good development and something that's needed in that part of town. I do note that one heritage listed house that looks fairly special will need to make way for this new development, but on balance, I think it's a good sort of a plan to support. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Baker. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Edwards, happy to put the motion or wish to sum up debate?
Just a little bit, sum up. Yeah, it is a real shame to lose any heritage items in our city, but unfortunately these heritage items offer really limited opportunities for adaptive reuse, and we do need more housing stock in our city. And this development is appropriate as it's in the middle of town in our CBD where people can walk, ride and soon scoot to work and play. So happy to support this development.
Thank you, councillor Edwards. We'll put the motion in division. Councillors for, councillors Callaghan, Edwards, Bowen, King, Betteridge and Baker. That motion is carried. We will just wait for councillors. Oh, one more item, sorry. Oh, that's right. That also affects, correct. CM 13.5 development application 10.2023.40347.1 271 Bernhardt Street, East Albury, group home, 7 residences, retaining walls and demolition of buildings. Consideration of submission to Southern Regional Planning Panel. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that Council A receives the contents of this report and B determines to make a submission to the Southern Regional Planning Panel in relation to development application 10.2023.40347.1 for group home, 7 residences, retaining walls, car parking, front fence, vegetation removal and demolition at 271 Bernhardt Street, East Albury, Lot 1, DP 38393.
And that was also in support, correct?
Oh,
That's
the
added.
submission is in support.
Yeah, thank you. It's coming up shortly on the screen, but just for clarity, a seconder, councillor Baker.
Happy to second, Mayor King.
Thank you, councillor Edwards. Did you wish to speak to the motion? Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Oh, thank you, councillor Baker.
Although this is a little bit contentious, there's a dire need for this type of housing and I'm supporting the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards to close debate.
Happy to put the motion.
Happy to put the motion. We'll put the motion in division. Those for, councillors Callaghan, Edwards, Bowen, King, Betteridge and Baker. That motion is carried. Thank you. Now we will just pause while councillors Glucken and Thurley return to the chamber. Next item on the agenda is item CM 13.6, plumbing, drainage and horizontal boring services, council-wide panel contract number 23-01479. Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that council accepts the following tenders for the schedule of rates. Council-wide panel contract number 23-01479, plumbing, drainage and horizontal boring services. Estimated contract spend is 2.36 million, inclusive of GST, over a 2-year period commencing January 2024. First dot, Albury Wodonga Plumbing Services Proprietary Limited, Benex Group Proprietary Limited, Cleanaway Waste Management Limited, Fletcher Plumbing and Co Proprietary Limited, K&L Bell Chambers Plumbing Proprietary Limited, Mitra Drilling and Construction Proprietary Limited, Rangedale Drainage and Industrial Services Proprietary Limited, Riverina Horizontal Boring Proprietary Limited, Stein Plumbing Co and Tonkin Plumbing Group Proprietary Limited.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Very happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Betteridge, did you wish?
No, thank you, Mayor King.
Any speakers for or against? In that case, we'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. CM 13.7, building maintenance panel contract number 23-01897. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as is printed in our report as a motion that council accepts the following tenders for the establishment of a schedule of rates panel contract number 23/01897, provision of building maintenance services, council-wide panel contract estimated up to 1.3 million, including GST over a 2-year period, including the 3 companies, ARC Facilities Proprietary Limited, Heitch Constructions Proprietary Limited and MBSFM Proprietary Limited. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mayor King.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, did you wish to speak to the motion at all?
Yes, just to highlight that this again is one of those opportunities that council is enabling us to realise, and that this is a panel, a pre-selected list of companies who are able to supply and therefore making the system much more efficient and effective. And again, this is one of the number of such panel opportunities, as was the last motion moved by Councillor Betteridge, with a view to facilitating efficiencies and effectiveness within council. So it's great for council, but it's good for the community. Thank you.
If there are no other speakers for or against, we'll put the motion. Those for, those against, that motion is carried. CM 13.8, Albury Airport North East Apron Rebuild Contract number 22-00971. Councillor Thurley.
Mayor King, I move that council accepts the tender from AP Delaney and Company Proprietary Limited for contract number 22/00971, Albury Airport North East Apron Rebuild for the lump sum price of $1,074,700, including GST.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to it at all? Any speakers for Councillor Glacken?
Thank you. Yes, from a perspective of Albury and our region, the airport is a significant piece of infrastructure. It is imperative that we continue to maintain, not only maintain, but build on what we have to ensure that we have the greatest opportunity for our regional community and our people, business and leisure-wise, family-wise, for us to be able to have an airport that is really something that we can take well into the future. Our numbers are increasing again. The numbers of passenger flights, the numbers on passenger flights in and out of Albury are increasing again. And it's important that we continue to meet that demand as a city. It's a fabulous facility that Albury City run. There are some regional cities that do not own their own airport, and it's important that we continue to own and operate that facility to make sure we get the best opportunities for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Happy to put that motion. Those for, those against, that motion is carried. Thank you. CM 13.9, the draft move Albury Wodonga Integrated Transport Strategy Public Exhibition submissions. Do we have a councillor wish? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that Council A receives and notes the submissions received during the public exhibition period, and B endorses move the Albury Wodonga Integrated Transport Strategy as per attachment 4 with all the recommended changes post-exhibition.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Not at this point, and there might be a question up there.
Oh, yes, sorry. Councillor Callaghan with a question first off.
Sorry, I was speaking for the motion. My sign's not clear.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. First of all, it is disappointing that Wodonga Council decided not to place MOVE strategy on public exhibition, deciding not to seek feedback from their community. However, the MOVE strategy aims to tackle barriers and improve the way we move around our cities, encouraging active transport and with the aim of reducing emissions and making our cities more accessible and more vibrant. And they've done a wonderful job through the consultation period. It was very extensive, so well done on that project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Callaghan. Speaker 4, Councillor Glacken.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, thank you to the staff who have done significant work. MOVE deals with many aspects of transport and physical communication within our community, our relationship with other cities, for example, Wodonga, but also other regional areas as well. And this is a very much a higher level big picture view. And I'm sure everyone's very excited about looking into that finer detail at some stage and achieve some of those efficiencies and effective opportunities as we go and move around our community. One thing I would like to highlight is that it is imperative that we as a city ensure that we enable our community, our regional community, to come and utilise the facilities and services that we have. We are a regional city and we need to ensure that our regional community can come into our city, move about our city freely, and then go back to their respective towns and villages. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Councillor, if there's no further debate, Councillor Edwards, did you wish to sum up?
Just quickly, yeah, this is a great strategy and I'm really looking forward to more bus stops, solar shade and EV charging at council car parks, green, active and public transport, transit corridors and road construction projects that incorporate separated on-road cycling infrastructure. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. CM 13.10 Urban Forest Strategy Scope and Stakeholder Engagement Plan. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as printed in our report as a motion that council endorses the project scope and stakeholder engagement plan for developing an urban forest strategy.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Happy to second that motion.
Councillor Glacken, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Albury is very well known for our treescape and the vegetation within which we take immense pride as a community. And I'm looking forward to taking this by way of a larger master plan and engaging with our community to be able to reach what our community would like us to have into the future. It deals with many aspects within our city and that treescape, as I call it, but it's looking at the bigger picture, not just the treescape that we see as we drive around, but many other aspects within our community as well. Thank you. And I have a question at an appropriate time.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Any other speakers for or against? If not, we'll go to your question, Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. So having looked at the scope, and I'm looking at page 154 in our document. It says the urban forest strategy is proposed to be delivered in two parts, and then it has the project is anticipated to include but not limited to the following. So my question is through you to the most relevant member of staff. Where do questions such as, for example, the plane trees and the allergies that many people suffer from them, and the issues of roots and invasive roots on our city come into that? What component of this plan would such practical things as that be considered and or included? Noting, as I appreciate, this is a high level document.
Mr. Miller.
Through you, Mayor King, and thank you for the question. Look, I suppose there's opportunities for that question to be answered at multiple stages within this. The beauty of this consultation process is that it is multi-staged. So that initial have a say process would be an ideal opportunity to bring it up nice and early. It's a consideration that we can put into the strategy, and then developing our streetscapes, the list of trees that are appropriate within our city, and the considerations such as you've spoken about.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to have an example as to how that would apply for our community, and how they would feed into this plan. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
No, that wasn't a question. That was
A question?
why I posed the question.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you
I do
for
apologise.
clarification. Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Baker.
King, a question through to Mr. Millett, if I may. Even though we think we're fairly, we've got a lot of trees and it's quite green, I think I read it in the sustainability minutes a couple of weeks ago, the percentage we're aiming for and the percentage we currently sit at. Have you got that close by?
Thank you, Mayor King, and thank you for the question. Look, the percentage we've got off the top of my head, I can't recall, but it is in the information there somewhere. We're at about 16 to 18% currently. And part of the consultation with the committee is actually to set that percentage that we're wanting. There's no preconceived ideas on that. There's a significant amount of work that's gone into a scoping document, like a background document, which looks at some benchmarking against other council areas that they've put a percentage that they've adopted, and those percentages range sort of around the 30% mark. But that's what part of the consultation with our community would be, is about setting that that aim that we're trying to achieve, and the implications that are around that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? If not, happy to put the motion. No? Oh, there was a question, sorry. Councillor Edwards, question.
Through you to the relevant member of staff, can you confirm that there are some other regional councils that have targets of up to 40 and 45%?
Mr. Miller?
Through you, Mayor King, and yes, thank you for the question. Yes, there are councils that have figures up to that level.
Thanks, just more of that on the record.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Happy to put the motion? Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. CM 13.11 Murray River Experience Master Plan Review Stakeholder Engagement Plan. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move this recommendation as a motion that council receive and endorse the revised Murray River Experience Master Plan Review Stakeholder Engagement Plan.
Thank you. Councillor Bettridge.
You, through you, Mayor King, I'd be happy to second that motion.
Thank you. Have a couple of questions, or did you wish to speak to the motion first, Councillor Glacken? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor King. Through you to possibly Mr. Costello. I noticed that the Mitamita Canoe Club wasn't part of the stakeholder engagement group, where I don't think I saw it anywhere. Could we make sure they're part of this? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, is the answer. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor King, through you to the relevant member of staff. I may have missed it, but I'm just looking for confirmation of why there was that delay between the first phase and then this second part.
Mr. Costello.
Thanks very much for the question, Councillor Edwards, and through you, Mayor King. The extended timeframes have been due for a range of reasons. So the project did kick off back in 2020, and it so happened to coincide with COVID and a whole lot of staffing resources, but also the enormity of the scope of the project, acknowledging it takes in eight separate areas across council, and given that size in the project and some of those challenges associated with staff resourcing, it has taken an extended period of time. So we certainly acknowledge that, and hence the timeliness now of changing it from what was previously a two-stage consultation process. It's now appropriate to make that a three-stage community consultation process, just to make sure that we still understand and appreciate the community's priorities. And so that's why we're seeking to amend the stakeholder engagement plan to allow that additional stage in consultation.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, Councillor Glacken, thank you.
If you're happy, I'll close the debate. Thank you. This, to me, I'm delighted to move moving this recommendation as a motion tonight because, as is stated in the document, this is really something that started earlier this century. And indeed in my first term on council, and I think Councillor Bettridge was there, and I think Councillor Baker was there as well.
I was there.
Yeah. And subsequently, Councillor Thurley joined, and time moves on. However, much has been progressed. It was an ambitious project. There are many kilometres of area, some significant spaces, and ambitious projects within each of those areas. Significant work has been undertaken, was commenced. The Wagira Trail is very much a part of that. That's an enormous undertaking and an enormous achievement. Most recently, we've had the riverfront area open up as well, and we had something officially opened yesterday as well. So with all of that, I think it's an opportunity. It is a fantastic opportunity to reacquaint our community with these enormous projects that were scoped some time ago, have become, some of them have become a reality, others are yet to do so. And so I think it's a great opportunity for our community to be reacquainted with them, to provide us with their feedback. And we may find that the community can offer further enhancements to these facilities as well. And having these as a staged project, or a number of staged projects, has been extremely beneficial for many respects. And there has been an enormous amount of time and effort and a significant amount of funding placed into this as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. We'll put the motion, councillors. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. CM 13.12, Promotional Special Rate Levy Review for 2023-2024 Consultation Outcomes. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, through you, to move the recommendation that is printed in the reports for tonight, that Council A, receive and note the findings of the 2023-24 Promotional Special Rate Review. B, continue the Albury CBD Promotional Special Rate for the 4-year period 24 to 28, applying the rate peg increase each year, and receive and consider a further report in 2024 to determine management of the promotional special rate levy and delivery of Albury CBD promotional activities by Albury Business Connect for 4 years, 2024 to 28. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bettridge.
Thank you, through Mayor King. Happy to second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, this is a significant part of business within Albury, and there have been some changes think it was 12 years ago, in the way in which the Albury CBD promotional special rate levy was administered. And there have been further changes in how that is applied as well. Applied and then administered. And I notice in the document that most of the people who responded, not everyone was there, were significant numbers of people who didn't respond, but those who did were primarily in support of the opportunity. There were also areas discussed in the report about opportunities, potential opportunities for other shopping areas in Albury, in and around Albury, but this is specifically for the Albury CBD promotional area. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Glacken. Any speakers for or against? If there's no further debate, happy to put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM 13.13 Financial Assistance Policy Draft Program Guidelines. Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that council endorses the draft program guidelines for community and cultural grants and the draft guidelines for sport and recreation grants.
Thank you, councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mayor King.
Councillor Betteridge, did you wish to open debate?
Very briefly, yes, thank you, Mayor King. Very important document. This is the support that we as an organisation give to community groups, sporting groups, and I think we're going to do it in a fiscally and sustainable way into the future. I applaud the work put in by the staff, and I think that we've got a very, very good product here. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Betteridge. Any other speakers for or against? In that case, I'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. CM 14, Officers' Reports for Noting. CM 14.1, IPART Rate Peg Methodology Review Final Report. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council receives and notes the IPART Rate Peg Methodology Review Final Report.
Thank you, councillor Glacken.
Happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to it at all?
Just to say, thank goodness we finally got somewhere. I'm not sure that everything we wanted we've got, but at least it's an improvement on what we've had up till now, and really should help us with our ongoing sustainability. I think there's more needs to be done, but I'm sure Mr. Finlayson will be right on top, and our CEO will be right on top of that.
Thank you, councillor Thurley. Councillor Glacken.
Yes, just to add, as councillor Thurley has quite rightly pointed out, it's pretty much a vast improvement on what we've had previously. But the point that I glean most from this is that it is now recognised that there really is an issue, and that they are and will continue to look at opportunities to make this more effective into the future than even these changes are. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other speakers for or against, happy to put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. CM 14.2, Economic Indicators Report, November 2023. Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through Mayor King, I'd like to move that council receive and note the Albury Economic Indicators Report, November 2023.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bowen, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor King. Happy to second that motion.
Councillor Betteridge, did you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor King.
Any speakers for or against? Happy to put the motion then. Those for, those against, that motion is carried. CM 15, Delegates Reports for Noting. CM 15.1, New South Wales Public Libraries Association Annual Conference, Switch, 16th to the 17th of November 2023. Councillor David Thurley. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council receives and notes the delegates' report on the National General Assembly of Local Government. What? No, I don't. I don't move that.
Correction. Yes, the New South Wales Libraries Association Annual Conference, but we'll just We'll get the wording right, but obviously we'll fix that up as you go. So while we're getting that, did you wish to speak to the motion or to the report? Oh, you need a seconder actually, don't you? Councillor Glacken.
I don't have a copy in my agenda.
The National Libraries, yes, happy, yep.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor Thurley. Nearly there, sorry.
I can speak to it anyway.
Yeah,
I did attend the second day of the conference and the AGM and listened to quite a number of very passionate and great speeches. A couple of the issues that came up, and I'm sure our library staff will be looking at these sorts of things, are the pluses and the minuses of AI with respect to libraries. We understand that AI can give big advantages, but quite clearly recently there are a number of ill effects of AI that have been shown. And the other issue that was raised once again is increasing agitation amongst some members of the community with regard to events in libraries, with regard to books held in libraries and so on. And we've already had such a matter in Wodonga. It hasn't quite got to us yet, but it's a matter that councils were all talking about and needing their staff to be looked after and educated as to what to do under these sorts of circumstances. Some of them have become quite violent, in fact.
Thank you, councillor Bowen.
Sorry.
Oh no, accidental button push. Any other speakers for or against in relation to that? We had councillor Glacken moved, just for the record. Yeah, councillor Glacken seconded. Yeah, we just had you off mic at the time. Apologies. In that case, we'll put the motion. Those for, those against, that motion is carried. CM 16, notice of urgent business. There is none. CM 17, confidential matters. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you, I would like to move the recommendation as printed on the screen that council move into confidential to discuss item number council meeting 17.1 and 17.2, as these are confidential items exclusive of press and public, on the grounds that the matters relate to 17.1. Council meeting 17.1 agenda item, strategic land acquisition, water supply for Goona, confidential item exclusive of press and public, on the grounds that matters and information are the following: commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it, and that's with reference to Local Government Act 1993, number 30, section 10A2D little I. And 17.2, senior staff contractual matters, confidential item exclusive of press and or public, on the grounds that matters and information are following: personnel matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors. And again, that is with reference to Local Government Act 1993, number 30, section 10A, and specific reference to A. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Bettridge.
Be the second making.
Thank you. Are there any statements or submissions from the public regarding the reasons as identified for these confidential items, CM 17.1 and CM 17.2? There are no submissions. I'll put the motion to move into confidential. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. The motion to move into confidential, as it has now been carried, for our live stream viewers, we will now say goodbye. You can find the outcome of this confidential session in the meeting minutes, which are published on the Albury City website within 2 business days.